Now that we're 1 week into President Trump's second term, I'm proud to report that our Republican trifecta is already delivering. From President Trump's America First executive orders to Congress's passage of common sense legislation such as the Lake and Riley Act, to the restoration of American leadership on the world stage, voters can rest assured that our Republican trifecta won't just talk about solutions, we're going to get things done. On Monday, our conference had the opportunity to hear from President Trump, as Lisa just mentioned, as he laid out his priorities for the months ahead, including reconciliation. Needless to say, we have a lot of work to do and little time to do it. But this House Republican majority can and will deliver. Why? Because failure is not an option. Our leadership team will continue engaging in a process on reconciliation to ensure that each and every member's voice is heard and no one's vote is taken for granted. We understand that the American people expect us to work quickly, which is why Speaker Johnson has set an aggressive timeline for passing a budget resolution by the end of February. This will unlock the opportunity for committees to begin drafting legislation, and that's where the real work will begin. In the words of the greatest hockey coach, I would say probably one of the greatest coaches of all time, Herb Brooks, this is our time, this is our moment, and the American people can rest assured that we're going to go out there and we are going to take it. Lastly, I want to address the first ridiculous media hoax of 2025. The Office of Management and Budget's review of certain spending priorities should be seen for what it is: good governance. There have been a lot of outright lies from members of the media and desperate Democrat politicians on this issue, including from the governor of my home state of Minnesota. But while pathological liar Tim Walz grasps for headlines and reels from his humiliating loss in the election, President Trump is delivering on his promise to ensure your tax dollars are being spent effectively. To be clear, OMB's guidance focuses solely on programs directly impacted by President Trump's executive orders. This includes funding for things like NGOs which facilitate illegal immigration, and it specifically excluded programs that provide direct funding to individuals like Social Security and Medicare. I, for one, am glad to have a president in the White House who is delivering on his promise to get our fiscal house in order as we stare down $36 trillion in debt, and who is also committed to undoing the damage Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did to our country over the last 4 years. And with that, I turn it over to Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Whip. You know, if you think about the last month that we have started unified government, first with the House and Senate starting off both in Republican hands, and then with President Trump coming in after an amazing week of inauguration ceremonies, and then going to work right away. Day one, President Trump had the leadership of the House and Senate at the White House to talk business, how to get to work delivering results for the American people. And this week has been no different. As Lisa talked about, a record number of members participating, and you could see that on full display when President Trump spoke to our conference on Monday night. Multiple standing applauses, and just the message that President Trump delivered, just reminding everybody what the campaign was all about and now how it is our time to go and deliver for those families who have been struggling under 4 years of failed Biden-Harris policies, and how we can turn that around. And of course, budget reconciliation is such a powerful tool to start that process of getting this country back on track. And there's been a lot of conversations the last 2 days, and we'll continue that conversation today amongst our members about how to get there. Budget reconciliation is never easy. The last time we did this as Republicans with President Trump in the White House, you can go back and look at the votes. When we moved the budget is the starting point for budget reconciliation. The budget resolution got over 20 no votes on the Republican side. Still passed because we had a large margin. I don't know if y'all know this, but we have a very small margin now. And it's going to be that way the entire way through. Might be 3, might be 2, might be 5. But at the end of the day, and this was the message J.D. Vance reiterated to us yesterday, we stay unified, we can get anything done. We have to hash out our differences, and that's what we're doing. We had meetings yesterday We're committee chairmen that are going to be involved in the budget reconciliation process. So, of course, you start with the budget resolution to give the targets, the starting points to the committees. But there will be 11 committees involved in the actual budget reconciliation process. And so a number of those committee chairs had sessions where they laid out the details. You know, these are the things we're going to work on. These are the savings that we're going to achieve. This is what we're going to do to secure America's border, working with President Trump. This is how we're going to solve big problems for the country, reduce inflation, ensure there's no tax increase on American families who surely don't want to see that devastate their pocketbooks. And so we laid that out. And we've been continuing to have an honest discussion about the differences within our conference, and that's how we are going to come together to ultimately pass historic legislation for our country to kick off what's going to be 2 years of successful achievements for the American people who gave us this mandate to govern. With that, our leader, who's been at the helm, directing our members to the North Star, Mike Johnson.
Thank you, Leader Scalise, and all of you. Welcome and good morning from beautiful Miami. It's been a great time here, as has been discussed. We've been working really hard, important discussions about reconciliation and the first 100 days agenda. And during the campaign, we made a lot of promises. We went all around the country. We secured the House majority, the Senate majority, the White House. We promised to fix the catastrophe at the southern border, and you've seen action on that from the very beginning from President Trump and from the House and the Senate. We promised to restore energy dominance. You're already seeing action on that front. Much more to come. We promised to reduce the size and scope of government. And there's been so much action on that that it's caused controversy. That's a good thing. We're disrupting it. We promised to grow our economy and reduce inflation. And all of that comes together now. So President Trump's already using his authority, as you've seen, to get much of this work done. And it's been at a breakneck pace. In fact, so much so that you all have no shortage of anything to write about, to report on, and get used to it, I think, because this is going to be the new pace in Washington. Everything has changed, and the American people wanted that. They demanded it and deserved it, and that's why the outcome of the election was what it was. Congress has to reinforce all this executive action, though, with legislative action, and that's what we are preparing to do. We're off to a great start. We've already passed common sense legislation like the Lake and Riley Act, which will be signed by the President this afternoon in Washington, the Preventing Violence Against Women by Illegal Aliens Act. But reconciliation, as has been emphasized here again this morning, is the key legislative vehicle to deliver on the broader America First agenda. We're working together to ensure that package makes good on our campaign promises. We believe in promises made, promises kept, and we're going to use every avenue at our disposal to make sure that happens. We're going to keep our word. This is a conference-wide effort. It's been a very productive, constructive exercise here and in the weeks and the months leading up to this exercise that we've engaged in. We'll be wrapping it up this morning in a final long session of discussion with the members here. As the whip has done such a good job, and the leader and the conference chair have done such a good job engaging everyone, we reminded the group yesterday that 94% of House Republicans have been directly engaged in the discussions, in the deliberative process to get us to this point. Only 14 House Republicans have not directly engaged in one of these conference discussions, and some of them are because of their schedule conflicts, etc. But every single member will be involved. When we say a bottom-up member-driven process, that is by design, and we are exactly where we are supposed to be on our timetable. This is all pre-planned, and it's coming together very well. This process can be complex, and it's not a simple task. What we are aiming to do really is historic. You've heard that said here a couple of times already this morning. We believe that we are going to engage now in one of the greatest pieces of legislation in the history of the United States Congress, because it will be so consequential, because we have to fix everything, and we have a mandate from the people to do so. So we're building consensus. We're putting together a blueprint to do that very complicated thing, and we plan to act on that in very short order. And as we've said, when we return to the Hill, the Budget Committee will be marking up a budget that serves as the foundation for the reconciliation process. That's going to happen, and we'll get it through the whole chamber, and we'll be voting on that by late February, and that will keep us on the aggressive schedule that has been set out to make sure we accomplish this mission. One of the most important elements in this package will be extending the 2017 Trump tax cuts. And we've all been talking about this a lot. You've all been writing about it, but some of the recent reports show there was a study that came out about 2 weeks ago that said that we risk losing 6 million jobs and $1.1 trillion in GDP if we don't extend those tax cuts. We have no margin for error. We must get this job done. And by the way, had Democrats won the House, that's what would be happening. They would have given Americans the largest tax increase ever. We're not going to do that. Thankfully for American families, Republicans are leading the House and the Senate, and President Trump is back in the White House, and Vice President J.D. Vance is in the White House, and they are working together. We're all working together. We're going to deliver on these promises through that reconciliation package. We've been using our time together in Miami to work through a few pieces of this process, and we will get this job done, and some of the elements, the key elements of that will be coming together this morning. We apologize for our disparate outfits here. We're all playing different roles and responsibilities on the last day here. And I wish I didn't have a tie in Miami. I think it's some sort of crime here. With that, I'll take your questions. Third row.
You mentioned that you were planning to have a blueprint today, and that you were working towards that blueprint. I just wondered.
On va suivre conférence de presse Parti républicain qui a organisé série activité
Well, we'll be getting to that final number. What we've emphasized with our group is that we want to have some flexibility in how the instructions are given to the committees. I mean, this is a complicated process for reconciliation, but if you put the ultimate objective in the reconciliation instructions themselves, then in some ways it could be self-defeating, because if you don't quite hit that number, that goal, then that piece of the reconciliation process can fall out. That title can fall out of the legislation. So we want to be careful in setting that. We want to come out with a number that shows the serious nature of what we're facing and really the high level of cuts that are necessary to get fiscal sanity and responsibility restored to the federal government, but not put everything in there. So in other words, my recommendation and my hope, my admonition to my colleagues here, is that we set a number that's really a floor in what we hope to achieve by savings and not the ceiling. And there's a lot of strategic reasons for that. But so stay tuned for the number. It will be substantial because it has to be. I mean, we have a $36 trillion federal debt. And we're committing that in this process, anything we do is going to be deficit neutral at least, and hopefully deficit reducing, because we think we've got to change that trajectory. So that is part of the healthy discussion we've been having, and everyone has lots of opinions about that, of course, and the opinions are welcomed, and we'll come to consensus on it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. If you want this bill to be deficit neutral, and as you say, extend the Trump tax cuts, not raise taxes, and as you said yesterday here, not affect Social Security and Medicare benefits, it's likely that you're going to have deep spending cuts given the price tag of this agenda. How have you identified over these last few days the areas where you're going to cut spending so that you can credibly say that this is going to be deficit neutral, or has there been no agreement?
Well, no, this is exactly what we've been engaging in for many weeks. In fact, some of the members are so exhausted with going through the menu of cuts and options that they said they're now tired of talking about it, which is exactly where I wanted them to be. Now we got to move to the action step. So what we've been doing is we empowered the committee chairs, as you know, to come up with lists of areas, suggestions, and their areas of jurisdiction where some of these cuts could be done, meaningful cuts, to really reduce the size and scope of government and get government to be more efficient and effective for the people. So these are lots of handouts and sheets and big screens we've been going through for many weeks now, and we're finalizing all that now. So stay tuned. I mean, we're not going to publish the list at this point, but that's part of this process to make sure everybody's on the same page about all of it. So, second row.
Mr. Speaker, on the President's buyout plan, first of all, your response, your thoughts on that, and furthermore, do you think the American taxpayer is comfortable with roughly 2 million federal employees, up to 2 million, sitting at home doing nothing for 8 months while on a payment?
Yeah, they've been right. Of course, they're not comfortable with it. Drastic times call for drastic measures, and they've been doing this for 4 years under the Biden administration. They had full license, apparently, to not come to work. And it's a terrible frustration for us and for the American people. And because of civil service laws, that's what people have to understand, this is not like a private company. It should be that way, but it's not. the new president can't come in and just walk into an agency and say you're all fired, which that probably be appropriate in some of these places, but he's not allowed to do that under the law. And so the president is thinking outside the box. His team is thinking outside the box. Well, how can we address this problem if we can't fire people for lack of showing up for work? Well, let's give them the option to take a parachute, We don't like that, but it's better than the alternative of having people not work and stay on the payroll. So they estimate that maybe 5 to 10% of the federal workforce will take their golden parachute. They'll be paid through September, I think is the proposal, and maybe they leave the workforce. Fantastic. I hope they do. But if the estimate is if 5 to 10% leave, you can save $100 billion for taxpayers. Just with that downsizing of the size and scope of government. There will be other creative ideas on how to do this, but I think it's the right move. Is it frustrating? Yes. Should it not be that way? Yeah. I wish we didn't have civil service laws that require that kind of action, that they need to be reformed. But the president's looking at the reality and the law, and he's trying to do everything within his power to make good on the promises and the demands of the American people. And it's right. I think it's right.
On Monday, coming into the retreat, you said that you hoped members would be able to reach a consensus on the budget. Have they
Ça, c'est donc c'est question-réponse.
Yeah, the objective is to, by the time we leave here today, is to have a blueprint that will inform the budget committee for when they work on that budget resolution. And they're going to begin that process, the committee work and the markup, when we return to Capitol Hill. So they'll have sort of the parameters for that. And what we've emphasized to our colleagues here is, remember, the resolution is just the first step in a long process. It unlocks the reconciliation procedures and processes itself. And so the real battle is not in the budget resolution, it's in the final package. So everybody here still maintains their voting card, and they have the right to stop this process at some point down the road if we're not achieving the level of savings that they desire or have committed to. But we have to begin it, and we have to start it, and this is the necessary step. So.
Obviously, you're looking to cut, I know you promised $3.5 billion to cuts. The easiest way to get their entitlements, are all entitlements on the table? Are there some that are on the table? And if so, what are the ones that are on the table?
Well, listen, we have made very clear, the President's made very clear, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, we're not talking about in any way reducing benefits. What we're talking about is efficiencies in the programs to make them work better for the people who receive those benefits and to make them longer lasting, to sustain the programs. And so those are the ideas that are being talked about: efficiencies, cutting fraud, waste, and abuse. I mean, some of these programs are terribly abused, and it's infamous, and everyone knows it. Now's our opportunity to go in and fix all that, and we are excited about that opportunity. The members are anxious to get it started, and the administration is as well. But benefits will not be affected. So that's the delicate balance that we're working through. But there's a lot of good work to be done, and we're excited to do it. Look, we want to thank you all again for being here, and hope you've had at least a little sunshine, warmer weather. We've had a great retreat. It's going to wrap up well today, and we will see you back on the Hill as we begin all this good work. So thanks so much.
Voilà, c'était donc commission parlementaire républicaine dans le cadre cérémonie ou activité qui a organisée dans la Florida, dans l'hôtel que dans la dans Dora. C'est là que vous êtes réunis pour session congrès ça que vous même organisé. C'est parti républicain qui te gagne propre session que t'a organisé et tu as choisi Floride là, tu as choisi hôtel la caille dans le Chop Dora pour te organiser activité si là. Et pendant temps ça, il fait le point sur activité que le gouvernement a réalisé, satisfaction que vous gagné. Déjà, monsieur républicain a commencé partie des journalistes encore qui ont même estimé que approche journalistes n'est pas conforme à ça que vous même yo attend. Critique journalistes n'est pas fondée par rapport à décision gouvernementale ou bien à action que gouvernement li posé. Dernièrement, nous avons dit que États-Unis li au bord d'une situation difficile sur le plan économique puisque li atteint les plafonds en termes de dette sur le plan international. Donc, faudrait-il que l'autorité américaine ait fait bagay pour que yo réduit des pensions. Et c'est peut-être là dans le même li aller, mais selon un pile monde, monsieur choisit pour l'aller côté c'est que là on les place que là les côté cadavre là il pas aller dans morgue là avec cadavre là mais il aller côté c'est que là côté fait c'est que là pour le plein problème alors que gagner là un paquet de dépenses un paquet l'argent qui gaspiller taxe que qui surtout en faveur monde qui riche qui causer un déficit énorme en dans pays mais c'est pas comme ça que ouais il croit que taxe que bah businessmen yo c'est lui qui a aidé yo faire plus comme il a aidé yo rentrer plus comme cependant pays a li non dette là à côté que li gagne des trillions de dollars dette pour le monde États-Unis li pour arriver payer. Est-ce que nous comprenons dans ce sens ça situation c'est pas petit pays c'est pas bon même prix qui parle avec nous là qui pas gagné on 2 millions d'euros 200 millions d'euros tant qu'on a dit matin avec monsieur mais c'est le monde qui gagne problème parle inclut les États-Unis avec problème économique côté que nan prêter l'argent États-Unis rivé dans plafond dette li pas rien qui encore capable faire connaître sinon que pays dette li selon information donc on regarde pour nous qui ça va mais comme nous dit monsieur républicain est très content il a annoncé les couleurs il dit que t'es marché ça et là en dedans pays a fait promesse by population et que si yo bail aux majorité yo même y a délivré yo content que dans le commencer tout ça que te dit dans campagne surtout dans question immigration côté qui a arrêté monde déporté yo. Et puis, il fait comprendre tout, gagner une loi qui a été votée, qui portait une jeune fille, que yon bandit tout là, qui c'est yon dame Riley, manzete l'école nursing, et bien, bandit qui était tout là, une loi qui votait, qui portait non demoiselle Silla, selon information. Et que le président de la Chambre des députés a tout lui rappelé que yon raté, yon te gagné 29 parlementaires qui étaient votés non, dans le cadre de yon réconciliation budget, que yon tape travail sur lui avec démocratie, ou quoi que ça capable toujours arriver, il y a un républicain qui pas d'accord ensemble avec eux, cependant, ou quoi que budget réconciliation, c'est meilleur moyen pour ces meilleurs outils qui ont pour utiliser pour permettre que le pays a lui-même un budget qui permet de fonctionner normalement. Eh bien, il dit tout, 2 ans qui arrivent là, à Vin Jeune pendant 2 premières années mandat dans notre plan, eh bien, sont 2 ans historiques que la pied, il y a travail pour passer une quantité de loi et que peut-être si vous avez perdu majorité, il n'y a pas de chance pour vous faire encore. D'après ça que M. fait comprendre, il dit qu'il est bien content, il contrôle le Sénat, il contrôle la Chambre des députés et il gagne pouvoir exécutif meilleur avec Donald Trump qui retournait comme président en dedans pays, les États-Unis d'Amérique. Amis de partout, n'a dit que Israël, il y a le premier ministre Benjamin Netanyahu qui est pour lui pas bon ici, dans la date 4 février pour venir rencontrer Donald Trump, discuter ensemble avec lui sur question de négociation et puis c'est le feu qui était signé là, côté que gain échange prisonniers palestiniens ensemble avec otages israéliens qui a pu continuer dans le cadre protocole d'accord ça qui était signé avant ou bien sous administration Biden avec support tout une série de pays amis États-Unis, tout coup Israël ensemble avec Palestine. Palestiniens qui retournent dans Gaza malgré situation est très difficile mais yo dit que yo content la caillou c'est là que yo vivent c'est là que yo fait c'est là que yo aimé et bien yo content retourner la caillou malgré c'est en battante que on ça yo même y a vivre et puis n'a dit que hier dans état Floride là dans zone Broward là c'est pas 2 arrestations que autorité ont pas organisé yo pas procéder à arrestation en pile monde qui yo même yo estimé qui illégal ou bien yo jeune en situation illégale ici aux États-Unis d'Amérique. Restez branché Pstars radio télévision, n'a peut continuer informer pendant la journée. Nous espérons également rejoindre à partir de 12h pour devant le trône. Émission de prière que tu as gagné avec Madame Katia Valmont Désir depuis son Massachusetts. Moi c'est John Smith Dominique Prien seul les KAFOU avec Micoli qui a informé là. Eh bien